Hello, today we're going to be talking about some garden definitions that will make it easier for you to understand what's going on in your garden and to communicate that to other people. Hello, this is Alex with Grow How. If you like gardening, if you like homesteading, if you like to cook what you grow, then Grow How is the station for you. Please go ahead. If you enjoy those things, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell below, and you'll get notifications of every video that comes out. Now, today, what I'd like to talk about is some basic garden definitions. We talk about gardens, we go out, we do stuff in gardens. Sometimes we need to be able to communicate, and sometimes we need some clarification about what's going on. Now, up front, human definitions do not always fit what Mother Nature provides. We try and put things in categories so we understand them. Nature doesn't need to understand them, she just does them. So none of these are going to be 100% reliable, but for garden uses, these have proven to be fairly easy to use and fairly effective. The first one is an annual. What's an annual plant? Now, the definition of annual applies to how long it's going to live. An annual is something that's going to sprout, it's going to grow, it's going to flower, and it's going to go to seed within 1 year. Now, by sprout, I mean coming from a seed, whether it be a seed you plant, whether it be a wild seed, or whether it be a seed that's planted in the nursery. All these are going to have a life cycle where it ends. Everything ends within 24 months, and they've reproduced and created more seeds. Common annuals we have petunias, tomatoes, corn, begonias, peas, beans, most peas and beans. There are some species that will live longer. I should notify that. But the common ones that we have are all going to, we're going to plant them, they're going to grow, they're going to die, they're going to create seed 1 year or less. And these are really our common vegetable garden plants and the ones we put in renewed flower beds each year. This is not always true of some of these plants. Some of these plants are actually perennial in the tropics where they come from. But since we can plant them up here and they have that complete life cycle here, we will still call them perennials. Again, I said these definitions, call them annuals. Some of these plants come from the tropics. They come up here, and here they fit the definition of annual. Again, my specifications, these are really not absolutely hard and fast botanically, but for what we use them for in the garden, especially in our temperate garden zones, which is most of the U.S., these are very useful. The next one is a biennial, not a biannual, a biennial. And biennial means 2 years. So you have a lot of crops that we would call annual because we harvest them within 1 year that are really biennial. Parsley. Parsley is good for harvesting 1 year. The next year it goes to seed, which I like because then I never have to plant it again. Kale, collard greens, Swiss chard. Carrots originally were biennial. Some still are. Some, because of the breeding, have now become annual. Annual carrots are a pain because you don't really get what you want from them. They're not going to really last even up to the winter necessarily. So it's difficult with some of these modern highly bred varieties. The next category is perennial. And perennial is going to be something that grows, and it may reproduce in a year, it may reproduce in 20 years, but it's going to live more than 24 months, more than 2 years. And that can be a short-lived perennial that may only last 3 years. It may be a long-lived perennial that lasts 20, 30, 40 years. There are perennials that are a lot longer. You don't necessarily always see them, but they are out there. And perennials are things like your rhubarb, your asparagus are probably the most commonly known garden vegetables, but you also have strawberries are perennial. we don't do as well with those in gardens. We've found that the annuals are very productive in that 1 year, and it's just really easy to plant those and have them come back without much trouble. Perennial vegetables have a tendency to be kind of finicky as to how they produce, and will produce well 1 year, not well the next year. And that is a little bit harder. It requires planning if we're gonna be productive. But the three I mentioned, the rhubarb, the asparagus, and the strawberries, actually really are quite productive. If you haven't tried them, please give it a shot. The fourth category, and this is where we start moving away from how long something lasts, is a woody plant. Woody plants cover a lot of territory. It's a very generic description. If it grows for more than 12 months and if it creates wood, generally we'll call it a woody plant. Those are shrubs, those are trees, those are some stuff that's kind of weird. I mean, there are willows that only get that tall. Usually you don't use those for much of anything, for ornamentation around the home, but they exist. But for the homeowner's purposes, it's going to be your trees and your shrubs, but also things like your raspberries and blackberries. Raspberries and blackberries are perennial. The wood on them only lasts, for a short time as far as growing goes. So again, they're one of these ones that kind of avoid that definition. But as far as garden plants that are woody plants, your apples, your maple trees, all your trees, your shrubs, your roses, your Juneberries, your currants and your gooseberries, those are all woody plants. Again, you'll see them, shrubs, trees. That's primarily what we're talking about. And again, those are important because when you start going from something that just has soft, lush growth, and then that all dies back in the winter, towards one where you have the woody stuff that stays above ground and is alive, then the maintenance needs change dramatically, and you need to really think in different categories that way. So those are some of the most common definitions, the most common things that will help you understand what your garden is doing and help you to communicate your garden to other people. And the communication is really an important thing in gardening these days. And so I encourage you to look at how you're going to communicate what your garden is to other people. And you'll find that it actually saves some frustration if you think about that. And it will certainly save some frustration if you know, oh, this plant's an annual. Oh, that's why it hasn't come back. Now, there are some annuals that will reseed, and you'll have them come back that way. Very often those are wonderful, but they don't match their parents. And that all depends. I like getting those on my tomatoes because I just like to see what happens, and it's fun. So if you have any questions or comments, please comment below. If you have any subjects you'd like me to cover, please hit it in the comments below. And again, if you like gardening, if you like homesteading, if you want to cook what's in your garden, please hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell so you get notifications of other great videos like this. Thank you for coming along for the ride. Manana.